I've talked at length about Carrie Hope Fletcher's books before, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon, so let's get into it. In The Time We Lost follows LUNAAAAAAAAAAAAA, a young romance writer, and she goes from London to Ondingside, which is this tiny little microscopic island village place, so that she can get some peace and quiet to write her next book, mend her broken heart, possibly fall in love, etc. When I first started reading this book, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do my best to forget Carrie's other fiction novels, all of which I've read, and that proved to be unrealistic. I know Carrie's track record, and I know it well, and unfortunately, In the Time We Lost falls perfectly in place with said record. In my expert opinion, all of her books feature an amateurish writing style, one-dimensional characters, shoehorned romances, and incomprehensible plots. On top of that, each individual book has its own fatal flaw. In On the Other Side, it's that Evie makes a decision that makes absolutely no sense and dramatically affects the lives of those around her. In Winter's Snow, it's that a climactic argument/conversation takes place between the wrong people. In All That She Can See, it's that the book switches genres about 75% of the way through. And in When the Curtain Falls, half of the book is a ripoff of Moulin Rouge, the other half is Commitment Issues, the novel. And I found that In the Time We Lost rips off Groundhog Day and does it wrong. Partway through the book, you realize that Luna's interactions with the people in Ondingside, her going to the coffee shop and the bookshop and the house listing, like the real estate thing, and talking to the hotel owner and going to the chip shop and all of these things are repeating. Except she doesn't notice it, nor does anyone else. Now, for context, at the beginning of the book, Luna's fiancé leaves her at the altar, and she goes to Ondingside for what would have been their honeymoon. She throws up on a trivia master at a trivia night at a pub and then hauls ass out of Ondingside out of embarrassment. And this is her coming back a year later to write her book. So I had no idea what was going on. I was like, is this a non-linear narrative? Are we comparing these meetings to the meetings from last year? Has she known these people before? Why does she not remember? Why are they... Ugh. And it's like, oh, the day is repeating, but she has no idea. If I sound confusing, it is partly because I don't know how to explain this contrivance, and the other part is, it's contrived. This issue with the plot is bad for so many reasons, but we're just gonna put a pin in it and come back to it. Let's get to know some characters. LUNAAAAAAAA is our protagonist, and in the past I have said that, I even predicted that Luna would be a very kind, warm, caring person, just like all of Carrie's other protagonists and just like Carrie herself. Just to preface, I'm going to be making a lot of assumptions about Carrie and her person and also the publishing industry. I've never met Carrie, I've never published a book, I know nothing about either of those, but I'm still gonna make my judgments because that's what humans do. Anyway, Carrie has a tendency to fall into the nasty habit of writing all of her protagonists very similar to herself. Most, if not all, writers do it. It's no coincidence that a vast majority of Stephen King's most famous protagonists are all substance-abusing writers. And similarly, all of Carrie's protagonists are very gentle, kind, charitable people. But Luna is a bit different. She is not warm, she is cold. She's Elsa. She has peculiarly natural white hair that she wears in a fishtail and, like, ice blue eyes. She's Elsa. On top of that, she's standoffish, unfriendly, and kind of snippy. I reveled in this. I was like, finally, a character with like just a little bit of edge to her. A few facts about Luna. Her entire family died in an auto wreck a couple of years ago. On top of that, as I mentioned, she got left at the altar at the beginning of the book. Granted, that was basically the prologue, and the prologue and where the book actually takes place are like a year apart. And yet, I don't really know why it was in there because Luna's not affected by being left at the altar. She doesn't care. She even acknowledges, like, yeah, it probably wasn't gonna work out anyway, whatever. And besides, I don't think a year is an unrealistic amount of time to take to get over your ex-future spouse. But if the engagement, and therefore the breaking of the engagement, didn't matter that much to Luna and hasn't affected her now when we see her, why was it included at all? Was it so she had an excuse to go to Ondingside as their would-be honeymoon so that she could meet the trivia master who then becomes important to the plot later on, you know, when she moves back to Ondingside and meets him again. That doesn't feel like a good enough reason, especially since the future interactions that she has with this guy, she can't remember most of them. That was a very fast and very nonsensical sentence, but oh my god, this book. As you can probably surmise, Luna has been through quite a lot in her life, and yet she's this city girl who decides to move to a tiny town for peace and quiet, understandably, but at the same time she doesn't expect that, you know, in a small town, everybody knows everybody and they're gonna want to know her business. And here is where the clunky writing style comes in, because I lost track of the number of times that a resident of Ondingside, and this was all different people, it's not because of the Groundhog Day thing, it's just all different people asking, wanting to know where Luna's from, why she moved here, because it's Ondingside and nobody ever moves here unless they're retiring. What she's doing, what could have happened. And she gets really fed up with this, and her inner monologue is like, why do people want to know so bad? I just want to keep to myself, I'm a private person. And nothing new happens whenever she has these interactions. She reacts basically the same way every single time. At one point, the owner of the inn where Luna is staying asks her and is a little too insistent for information about Luna, and Luna like snaps at her. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I love it. I love that she's like rude and like a little bit mean. But then Luna takes like an entire Kindle page with her inner narration about how, she shouldn't have been so rude. Yes, the hotel owner was being kind of insistent and nosy, but she shouldn't have been so mean. Boundaries could be placed, and she couldn't expect people not to be curious just because she didn't want to share information, and she'd have to do better in the future, and that is a lot of words to say that somebody needed to take a chill pill. You know what you could do instead? Just say, blah blah blah, Luna snapped at Mrs. MacArthur. Then you have a moment where Mrs. MacArthur kind of recoils a little bit, and then we have Luna take a deep breath to collect herself. Maybe she apologizes, maybe she doesn't. Reveals more about her character and her behavior. And here's the thing about Luna being so closed off to other people. I get that she is the way she is because of what she's been through. I know that those are the facts of the situation, but it's not what it feels like. It doesn't feel like she's been scarred and scorned by a man who would have been her only family had she married him. It doesn't feel like she's mourning for her family at all. You know, there's times in the beginning of the book when she remembers them, but other than that, not really. Anyway, Luna's refusal to share her story or connect with other people doesn't feel like it's because of her backstory, it just feels like she's naturally antisocial. As for other characters, there's Luna's love interest, Beau, who owns a coffee shop and is the trivia master who Luna threw up on a year ago, and he's very nice. And that's basically all there is to him. I feel mean saying that, but there's really nothing else. Two of our supporting characters are Wendy and Jackson, who should have been the main goddamn characters of this story. The long and short of it is, Wendy is a shy and quiet bookworm who owns a bookshop and is, like, 9 months pregnant. And Jackson is the bad boy who visited Ondingside, knocked her up in a one-night stand, and left and doesn't know about the baby or anything. Put a pin in that while we unpin the Groundhog Day thing. Remember when I said that the days are repeating but none of the characters actually know it? Yeah, character development occurs, and relationships are forged and strengthened in spite of this, which makes absolutely no sense. In Groundhog Day, Phil is fully aware of the fact that the day is repeating and he loathes it and actively tries to change it. This process ends up changing him into almost a completely different person by the end of the movie. I've tried to say this sentence like 10 times and for whatever reason I can't get through it, so. Luna and the rest of the residents of Ondingside aren't aware that the same day is happening over and over, so when Luna starts to open up to more people, flirting with Beau, becoming friends with Wendy, it's seemingly for no reason. And Carrie Fletcher attempts to justify it by saying it's like this odd residual feeling left over from these interactions having occurred the day before in a way, but that's not a good enough reason for someone's general behavior and entire outlook on life and other people to change. Here's another issue. The day isn't actually repeating. The week is progressing, it's just everybody in Ondingside is forgetting it because magical realism. So for like 4 or 5 days, everybody thinks that it's the 16th of July when it's actually like the 21st. So how does everybody on the island find out that the days are repeating? Well, my boy Jackson is a storm chaser and he blows into town and tells Luna what's up. You know, it's not Luna, our protagonist, discovering that something's off. No, it's an entire outside person, almost like a Deus Ex Machina. And listen, I love Jackson because he wears a leather jacket and acts like a douchebag, but he also has a soft spot for the girl that he unknowingly impregnated like 10 months ago, and he came back to Ondingside not to chase the storm, but to reconnect with her. But god damn it, he doesn't make any sense either. He chases this storm in Ondingside, shows proof that the snow is resetting everybody's memories, and then deletes the proof? Why? Because he very pointedly doesn't care about other people and has no moral compass and wants to cause chaos, and it's like, While everybody else's unexplainable character development kind of pisses me off, his lack of character development is what really pisses me off. Because here's this adorable opposites attract story about a bookworm and a bad boy, and I know it's been done a million times, but like if somebody could do it right, that would be really great. And he knocked her up almost a year ago, but he doesn't know, but he came back to the island for her. Why couldn't the entire story have been about them? Oh my god, and imagine it told non-linearly with him like about to come to the island for the first and second times and all of the time that they spend apart and their arguments and oh my god. And you know, their one night stand, that'd be nice. I'm a pervert. Their reunion did not get nearly enough time, I must point out. At this point in the story, everybody on the island knows and believes that their memories are resetting at midnight every night because of the snow falling on the island. So everyone is trying to haul ass out of Ondingside. It's like 5 minutes to midnight, Luna can't find Bo, and Wendy has given birth. And then Jackson finds Wendy, finds her holding his newborn child. And they have a very brief argument and he's like, please, I want to come back, I want to make this work. And she's like, no. And that's it. She rejects him because she's a smarter woman than I am. It's 2 minutes to midnight and he decides to stay on the island and forget that this ever happened. Jackson starts off the story as an alcoholic douchebag and ends the story as the man who chose to forget his own daughter. I mean, goddamn, even if he and Wendy couldn't have worked things out, I wish he would have at least fought for that, to remember his own child. Maybe he could have been like, please, I understand you don't want anything to do with me, I will never have any part of your life after this, but I have to get off of this island, I have to remember you and our daughter, please at least let me have that. Maybe while they're in the car together, they reconnect slightly and maybe they manage to work it out anyway, I don't know. Now, the best part of this book is the ending. As I mentioned, everybody realizes that the days are repeating and they're trying to get off the island, but Bo, Luna's love interest, is not included in this. I know I mentioned Bo very, very briefly and didn't give any details about his relationship with Luna, but they know each other for 5 days. Anyway, he doesn't make it off the island because Jackson, like, knocks him out cold after he has this confrontation with Wendy and he's in a fit of anger, so then Bo stays on the island unwittingly. This saddens Luna at the time because they were really getting to know each other, getting those feelings. They were basically dating that day. They started dating after really a day of knowing each other, even though they realized that they'd known each other longer. But it's like, if you don't remember those interactions, then oh my god, shut up, Rose. Stop trying to make sense of something that makes no sense. Maybe she would have waited for him, but she has Wendy and a new baby to take care of and get off of the island, so she couldn't wait around for him. Fast forward a year, Luna has moved back to London, she's doing a book signing, and she encounters Bo, who has moved off of the island but doesn't remember her. So of course she's thinking, you know, this is an opportunity, we can reconnect, I can tell him about my experiences in Ondingside, and he reveals that her latest book means a lot to him because it actually resulted in his old girlfriend getting back together with him because she heard about the events in Ondingside and wanted to make sure that he was okay. And honestly, it delighted me because of how much sense it makes. Bo and his now no longer ex-girlfriend, I guess, knew each other for years, probably. He and Luna knew each other for 5 days and they can't remember 4 of them. Carrie is no stranger to a bittersweet ending, but this one just felt right. It would have been nice if it had been contrasted with just a simple sweet ending where maybe Wendy and Jackson aren't together, but maybe their feelings for each other are starting to blossom and it's complicated, but they're learning to co-parent their daughter in an effective and healthy manner. That'd be nice. But no, Wendy's a single mom with the support of Luna, which is empowering, girl power, but like also romance. I have to mention the part It's basically one of the very last things that occurs in the book, but Luna signs Beau's book and says, "Just so you know, my name is Luna." For context, Luna writes and publishes her books under a pseudonym, L.J. Lark. So it's sad because he doesn't remember her, he only knows her by her published name, yada yada. But this moment is heartbreaking not because Beau ever knew her as Luna, but because she never gave him her first name ever when they knew each other. So it's not that he forgot, it's that he literally never knew. They interact on multiple occasions, granted they can't remember most of them, but on their last day in Ondingside, or Luna's anyway, when they've basically decided to date, she still insists that she is Miss Lark to him. At the time, they probably had more pressing matters than her giving him her first name, but oh my god, her reasoning up until that point for not giving her first name is so ridiculous. She has this philosophy that if you give someone your first name, then that means you are one step closer to becoming friends with them. Luna, you and Beau have exchanged saliva and talked about a future together. I nominate you as friends whether you like it or not. And it's a pretty ham-fisted and unrealistic thing to write, in my expert opinion. And maybe it was because Carrie wanted there to be a moment at the end of the book that really tugs on your heartstrings, and it certainly tugged on mine, but it's also very dumb. Also, can we just real quick. Generally, when you tell a story, the purpose of plot is supposed to aid character development. There's some sort of obstacle presented, and the character is supposed to develop in order to overcome it. I'm a film major, aren't I special? And in film and screenwriting, we talk about want versus need. A character usually has some sort of basic desire, conscious desire, but oftentimes what they need in order to develop as a person and step into themselves usually contradicts their want. It doesn't always, but it's kind of more interesting when it does. One of the examples of this that I was shown in one of my classes was this short film called Curfew, which won an Oscar a couple of years ago. And in it, the main character very clearly wants to die, but what does he need? To live. So throughout the rest of the film, he's gonna go through things that will possibly make him want to live. And in that regard, even though plot presents obstacles that work against a person's wants, it will ultimately serve their need. So in this sense, Luna does not want to interact with other people, doesn't want to form connections, etc. But she needs to form connections because she's human and most people need that. And that's also what's going to see her change the most in her character arc. We love a character arc. The thing is, the plot does not serve for her to forge connections with other people. Riddle me this, how are you supposed to develop relationships with other people when neither you or the other people can remember the interactions that you have? So in this way, her being able to forget everybody constantly helps her to not have relationships. Thus, the plot serves her want, but not her need. I don't know how to transition into this part, but I'm just gonna read you a passage that I found 37% through the book, apparently. Maybe books weren't worth writing if they weren't going to go on to be great works of literature. Then again, did someone have to always be the best at something in order for it to have worth? Could she merely just be okay at something, even good at a push, and be content with just telling stories that made people feel things? Despite not winning awards left, right, and center, or knowing her name as an author wouldn't be remembered and revered for the rest of time. And that raises an interesting question. Of course art can be bad or mediocre or just not the best thing ever, and people can still love it. There are plenty of people who don't share my opinions on Carrie's work and actually love her books, and it's not like I can't see why. And as much as I rip on this book and all of her other books, you know, they're not terrible. They're not problematic. They're not hurting anybody. They're not 50 Shades of Grey. They just aren't good at what they do. And I can't help but feel like this passage was possibly Carrie getting a little meta. Are Carrie's books devoid of value? The answer is no. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that if I had taken this entire book as a manuscript and presented it to an editor or a literary agent or a publisher, they would have said, okay, yeah, we could probably sell this, but you have a lot of work to do. This is partially because I would be a debut author in this hypothetical situation, and therefore I wouldn't have an established audience. It doesn't, and I'm part of the problem. I keep buying these books that I actively dislike because Carrie's the one who's writing them. If it was any other author, I wouldn't waste my time or my money, but it's her. I love her, so I see and how to get a book deal in 10 years because that's basically how long it took her to get hers. She mentions how guaranteed a book deal just because you have a certainty of her books, they just care about her brand. And that's something that I will probably never know personally. They're just not as good as they could be, you know? There's always a germ, there's a seedling there, there's something there that can be worked with. It's just that they need a good round of editing, you know? And it doesn't seem like anybody's doing that. Her books aren't bad enough to guarantee that I won't be here in a year or two to talk about whatever she's coming out with next, but they aren't good enough for me to recommend to other people. So yeah, that's kind of the bummer note for this video, but what are you gonna do? Thank you very, very much for watching. I love you.